Hey folks, welcome to This Week in History with Mike and Will. I'm Mike,
I'm Will.
and what we do is every week we pick a date in history that happened this week.
Yep, but a
in
while ago.
History, and then Will has 1 hour to explain that thing to me.
Yes.
It'll be fun.
Usually we go a little over the hour because we sidetrack, but we do our best. Otherwise, we talk for 3 hours.
Things like this.
Well, that's why we haven't
moments
flipped
like
over
this.
the hourglass.
All right.
Put my time in before.
I hope you enjoy this as much as I'm going to enjoy it. Today we're discussing what?
Mehmed II, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire.
The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire.
Twice. And that's our story.
His name is Mehmed II because he was Sultan twice?
No, he was not. It was the second Mehmed Sultan that was fully Sultan, but he was fully Sultan twice because he had to give up the throne once for a couple of years.
Well, let's dig into this then.
But we're talking about his second time being crowned, which is his full reign.
Oh, I see.
But we're going to also talk about the first one. We're going to talk about why there were two.
You're going to have to talk about a lot of things. I don't know anything about the Ottoman Empire.
Exactly. Nobody knows anything. So the Ottoman Empire.
Except they had nice furniture.
They really cared about elevating the feet. Our tale begins in what is modern-day Turkey.
Okay.
At the time, he was born in a city called Edirne, which is a city still. And at the time, it was the capital of the Ottoman Empire. And it was near what is modern-day Istanbul,
Oh.
which at the time was called Constantinople.
You can't say the word Istanbul without 80s song
Really
popping in your head.
I just wish we should just play that. We should have had a little ukulele.
I only learned recently that song, the song we're referring to is Istanbul, not Constantinople, by They Might Be Giants.
Yep.
I just learned recently that that's a cover song.
It's a cover song. My brother and I talked about this yesterday because I was telling him the subject of today's story, and he said, "That was my favorite song by them. It's not theirs."
Yep.
It's like it's a very old. It's a much older song.
Yeah.
It's like
I don't know when it's from, but it's older.
I feel like it's one of those
I want to say like
1930s.
20s, 30s.
Yeah. Like
Like
that and,
a vaudeville song.
yeah, vaudeville is that, and Anything Goes. And
Yeah.
that kind of a thing. Putting on the Ritz. So,
Regardless,
Istanbul was Constantinople and also Byzantium.
Ooh.
Depends
I like
on
Byzantium.
Byzantium sounds cool, and then you know it's part of the Byzantine Empire. For those playing the at-home game, this is the same empire, Eastern Empire, that was once part of Rome.
Okay.
But in the 4th century, Constantine.
Do we need to get the map? Do we need the map?
No,
Is that going to help?
I don't think it's going to help.
Okay, let's not get
Look
the
it up on a
then.
map where Istanbul is.
You know where maps are.
You can find them. Google
The word map.
the word map, and then or
Word
use
grip.
Google Maps.
Oh.
And then look at Istanbul, and you can explore everything. You can even find medieval maps, although they're not super
Yeah,
accurate.
do they have older maps? Yeah, they
They
must.
have older maps.
I was going to suggest go buy a map, but that wouldn't help right now.
No, it's not going to do... all the names are different, and it's in English.
Buy an old map.
But they did have... some of the maps back then were really, really accurate, especially along what's called the Silk Road,
Oh, sure.
which
well, you
cut
need good
through
maps
this
there.
part. Because you had to go through, like,
Yeah.
Constantinople was part of the Silk Road. It was like an end point, and you'd go all the way into, like, China.
Let's make sure we make some good maps.
Yeah, so they needed to know how to get to and fro.
Yeah.
But once you start getting on, like, you start linking parts of the world that don't really get on, it gets a little muddy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you know, the Christians conquer into here, and they're like, and that way, there's Turks.
Oh, I see.
That way is Asia. We're...
Etc.
And then the Turks are like, France is somewhere in there. Like,
Strange how people's mapping skills are based on their best interests.
yes, exactly. There were some, though, that were great merchants and traders, not traitors, but also maybe somebody probably considered them a traitor, that they would travel through. I mean, you want what's from other parts of the world. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
That's how trade works. That's how people work. I want this thing.
Yeah. Silk.
Silk. So
Places.
yeah, these people would travel around. They would tell each other what's going on, and they could fill in the maps. And maps were worth a lot of money, but that meant like only kings.
Is that relevant to what we're talking about today?
It is
Okay,
not
good.
super duper relevant, but knowledge is a really big important thing to Mehmed.
Ah, interesting. All right.
Anyway, the Ottoman Empire was founded in 1299. We don't know exactly day for day when that was founded, so a little before our story. And it lasted until 1922.
Oh.
It wasn't dissolved until after World War I, and that was kind of a you guys were on the wrong side, so we're dissolving your empire.
Yeah.
But if you do the math, that's actually probably the oldest empire in the world.
Where's Budapest in what you're talking about just now?
Budapest is in Hungary. Why do we want to know where that is?
I'm reading another book.
And then Prague is in what is now, I think they call it Czechia, but it was the Czech Republic, and before that was Czechoslovakia.
I'm reading another book that was written around 1922. It was written after World War One, but before World War Two, and it was talking about how it was in Budapest, and it's going to talk about how the guy is like, I don't like it here. It's awful here. Looks like they had a war here, and they didn't do too good, and there's a lot of anti-Semitism going on around here. I wonder what's up with that. And
that's wild.
I guess it's interesting. You'll find out in a couple years, guy who wrote this book.
Yeah, you have no idea yet, but just wait. No, interestingly enough, Budapest has, or Budapest, they have like minarets and kind of this interesting architectural style. Parts of Hungary do, parts of Czech Republic, parts of what would be called like Kievan Rus territory, stuff that like where the Russian peoples have been. So like parts of Ukraine, parts of what is actually Russia. They have kind of this minaret thing that looks like an upside down ice cream cone kind of thing, but pretty
like
fancy.
The Kremlin looks like that.
Yeah, the Kremlin. And then St. Basil's outside of the Kremlin, that huge, same red structure type of thing. And the Ottomans use that too. It's really interesting that even though they seem like they're super different culturally, because one's like Christian predominantly, one's Muslim, there's a lot of like architectural things that are kind of influencing each other back and forth. The Russians built in like wood mostly because they had lots of trees.
Yeah.
And then like the Turks didn't. They used a lot of stone because there were 4 trees in the open fields and then in their desert land. So it's very interesting that there's this crossover. And part of that is the position. So Istanbul is in between 2 massive chunks of waters, the Black Sea and the Aegean. I think it's the Black Sea. I should probably have double-checked to make sure it wasn't the Caspian Sea.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the Black Sea.
Pretty sure Black Sea.
Black Sea.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Could Google. Don't want to.
No,
Gonna
don't
push on through.
No time. You can correct us in the comments.
Correct us in the comments. Bring back the well actually section.
So far, no one's been commenting, so we can do whatever we
had
want.
one person comment,
Yeah,
and she confirmed your thought about Christmas.
There we go.
Yeah, the Norwegians
We
built
only
their
get
houses
confirmed.
tall. That's right. We get confirmation bias. Good. So anyway, it's on this place called the Bosporus Strait, right?
Okay.
So this is a huge chance to trade because if you can
Bosporus?
go the Bosporus Strait, Strait, not trait. And that's also called like the Hell's Point because it's fairly rough waters.
Yeah.
And you can go from the Mediterranean and the Aegean are like the same body of water. They're just kind of like arbitrarily, this is the Aegean Sea.
Yeah.
But that means you can trade from the Mediterranean to the Aegean up into the Black Sea and trade with all of these different people. Super important chunk of land. And for forever, this was seen as like the dividing point between Europe and Asia.
Yes.
Anything on one side is Europe, anything on the other side is Asia. Forever. Well, before this, the Turks have started conquering things. So we're in Edirne, that's west of the Bosporus. That's on the Europe side. That'd be like crossing over like the Rio Grande and just building a town and saying, this is America now.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so it's kind of an enclave.
Yeah.
And I didn't check exactly when Edirne was made into it, but the problem is Constantinople was seen as just this impossible nut to crack. It has massive, massive walls. We've talked about this before, where it's just like layered defense, and it's like every century they're like, make another round of walls. Population's getting bigger.
Another round of walls.
Just keep making them bigger. So it's like this concentric defense. Anytime you get attacked, it's like, well, we broke down this wall, yes, but now there's another one and another one, and then all the people don't want us there. Yeah. It's kind of a diverse town, city. There's Muslims, there's Jews, there's Christians.
I imagine on a border.
Yep. Yeah. And that's how they maintain their wealth. But they have complex politics.
Okay.
Hence Byzantine politics.
Ooh.
Stabbing people in the back. Or Byzantine. Again, that's one of those words I learned
I've always
by
heard
seeing.
Byzantine.
I've always said Byzantine.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So anyway, Mehmed comes up during this time where the Ottoman Empire is on the ascent. It's on the rise. Like, they're doing some stuff. It hasn't reached its golden age. It reaches golden age a little bit down the line.
Okay.
Their most famous ruler is literally Suleiman the Magnificent.
Ooh.
That's how good he was. Okay.
Suleiman.
But that's this guy's grandson.
Okay.
That's Mehmed's grandson. So he's not going to factor into our story, but just to we're laying a foundation here, right? So they've been around at this point for like 150 years. Now the Turks have been around for a lot longer, but they were kind of like, kind of similar to like the Huns, where they're nomadic, clannish warriors. They build cities and towns and stuff like that. Like they've settled, but they're descended from that and all these other like live on the plains, actually kind of similar to like the plains natives in America, where it's just all like you have these different cultures and they're starting to intermix with each other, and they have this kind of cultural identity based around that. They're very different, but they have some similarities, right? And for years and years, they fought and fought and fought, and then they kind of started to unite and become this organization, this group, and then the Ottoman Empire sprouted from that. So Mehmed is the son of Murad II.
Murad?
Murad. M-U-R-A-D. Oh, and the first Ottoman emperor was Osman. Hence Ottoman. That's his name.
Oh.
Osman the First. And oddly enough, the last emperor was a Mehmed as well.
Oh. We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that way later. So Murad was a warrior. He's a warrior king. He ruled from 1421 to 1444. Murad. And he fought 4 wars of conquest, and they were all successful. The only thing he couldn't conquer was Constantinople. When he was besieging the city, the Byzantines bribed his brother to rebel.
Okay.
So suddenly he has an army at his back, and he's like, I'm going to go deal with this.
And it's his brother?
His own brother stabbed him in the back. So it's like, you dirty Byzantines.
Man.
It's a Byzantine politics. They have a ton of cash. So he's like, here's gold. Stab your brother. And the Ottomans have like dynastic struggles. There's always like 17 kids. Because like the Sultan could have like the concept of the harem.
Oh, okay.
Where they have multiple wives at the same time. Because it's interesting, like in Europe, if they'd done that, the wars of succession probably wouldn't have happened as much.
Oh, sure.
Because this guarantees you have a kid.
Yeah.
And if you aren't having a kid and there's 5 women, you're the problem.
I suppose
so we're going to look at somebody else.
At some point, if you can't do it with this many women.
It's on you, man.
Oops.
Once is an oops. Twice, meh.
5 times.
5, and you can't Henry VIII it. Like, that wouldn't have flown. But then also, this causes problems too, because sometimes it's like, we'll have 6 wives. Only like 4 of them are like consorts. 1 was my first wife, she died. This one's my second wife. The 4 are consorts. Do those have less of a claim, even though that one's older, and that one's the son of a king?
Do they have rules for that? Did they have rules?
They had some rules, but it was largely the Sultan before he died said, king.
Okay.
Next guy. Next Sultan. And interestingly enough, the royal title for a woman, Sultan. There's no difference. I found that very interesting.
Did they have female sultans?
Never that ruled.
Oh, well.
But there's still an honorific.
Nice to have the name.
Still nice to have the name. And they were given a lot of respect.
That's great.
Way better than everybody, but you're not in charge.
I can have the name. That's wonderful. Thank you. Can I be in charge? No, I don't think that.
Well, they were always taken as the wife.
That's not going to happen.
Yes, yeah, it's just not in the cards.
Thank you. We'll call you Sultan, though.
Patriarchy. At least they were real upfront about it.
I guess.
They were real upfront about it. Like, women are not, nope, you make babies.
Fair enough.
And they're pretty hardcore about it. And that's not to say it's any different than like the West. Everybody tries to say, well, in the East, they treat women like crap. And it's like every time we've talked about anything in our history stuff, and the women get treated like crap.
Yes.
And
that sounds like...
there's that one other group that always gets treated like crap every time we talk about it.
Well, we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Talk about that. Oh, they feature into this story.
Yeah, of course they do.
Of course they do. So anyway, spoiler. So Murad is famous for being this fighter. He's very well respected, and he has this Grand Vizier. Viziers, it's like Jafar.
Yeah.
He's always the Vizier, And they always give the Vizier is always like a megalomaniacal. He's just evil. He's plotting.
Is that part of the job description?
I think maybe.
Okay.
Some of it's based on history because a vizier is an advisor.
I was going to say, where's that word advisor comes from?
Yes, I believe
Sounds
so.
like it.
Yeah. And then the Grand Vizier is basically like the head of state.
Okay.
That's the equivalent of your prime minister or almost a president.
Sure.
They can use the royal seal in the Ottoman Empire, which is it differs depending on if you're talking about like the the caliphate, the Mamluk Caliphate, which is in like Egypt, or how the Ottomans do things. They're very different how they handle a vizier.
Okay.
But in the Ottoman culture, the Grand Vizier is, if he walks in and says, do this, you do it. And the only way you don't do it is if the Sultan walks in and says, no, you do this.
So it is similar, though, like you said, the prime minister is in charge of actually doing stuff, and then the Sultan is in charge of waving.
And in the Ottoman culture, education is paramount. Like, so these are not just like, me dumb guy with sword smack people like in half of Europe where it's, how did he even get in charge? He's just a jerk with a sword. They're like, no, you're going to go get educated. That's your childhood on all the things. And that's what Murad does with his son. He has his son kind of come and see, like, this is war. This is going to be part of your job. You're a king, okay?
Okay.
But at a young age, he sends him with 2 advisors to go study. That's just what you did. You just kind of sent your kids away so that they weren't part of like palace politics too.
Okay, sure.
So then they couldn't be used against you. They couldn't be set up as scheme.
For your best.
It works. It actually worked pretty darn well for the most part. It of course. Where's my father?
Yeah, there's that separation thing. I never understood that.
I don't have my daddy. It sucks. But he's busy running the empire. So even if you're sitting in a palace, you're sitting in the empty gilded cage of the palace.
I guess.
So Murad sends Mehmed out, and he's already planning, this is going to be my son, that's my heir.
Okay.
So he wants the best education. Now, he educates...
Sorry, so he can pick. So he is...
He can pick any of them.
Yep, he's not bound by...
Doesn't even have to be the first.
Okay.
The Sultan has absolute rule.
Beautiful.
So it's a very clear line of succession, unless he dies.
Right.
Then that can cause problems. Right. Or if you have like the Hollywood thing of, I just want you to know, son, while we're alone in this room, you will not be my heir. I'm passing you over, and no one's nearby to hear my. Oh, why are you stabbing me?
Yeah, no one heard. That's what I'd do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, well, I guess I'm king. And
he said he said it. We were in that room, and he said I was king.
Yep. You remember when he said I was king before? And he totally wasn't going to change his mind. Yeah. And he didn't. He just said, I love you. That's why he had me come in there.
So you don't take private meetings as a sultan?
Ever. Never. And for the most part, they don't. That's why they have a grand vizier. They have 7,000 other viziers.
Yeah.
And a vizier could also be sent out, not just as an advisor, but they could serve as a governor to an area. They could run a town. They had all kinds of responsibilities. And a grand vizier would lead armies, too. So you had to be a warrior. You had to be like a sage. You also had to be extremely knowledgeable of the religion. Because Islam at the time, at least in the Ottoman Empire, is intrinsically linked with education. You can't have one without the other.
Oh, okay, sure.
You have to be able to read the book. You have to be able to understand its passages. You have to be able to interpret stuff. You have to talk.
You got to do all this while hunched over and scheming?
All scheming.
Wow,
all scheming. And you have to be able to wave a sword. Very tricky. And the whole image of like the evil vizier is based kind of on Murad's grand vizier.
Oh.
Who's a bit of a backstabber. There are others too, but this guy's a bit of a backstabber.
Let's find out.
Now his name is Grand Vizier. I'm going to screw this up. It's Kandarli Halil. So we'll just call him Halil. Okay. That's way easier for me.
How do you spell all that?
It actually had a weird letter in it that I wasn't really sure about. It's one of those not part of the English alphabet.
Yeah, okay.
And I spelt it Candarli, and then Halil was Halil. I took out all the accents. I might be butchering some of the spelling, but Halil I know.
We'll go Halil.
So,
Grand Vizier
Halil. He didn't like this whole conquering Constantinople thing. He thought that was just like a boondoggle. Like, well, it's not going to do us any good. And it's like they see it as a shell of an empire. It's not worth working at. It's tearing itself apart from the inside. It's defunct. It's corrupt. It's trash. It's 1,000 years it's been dead. Like, don't worry about it.
Wow.
We can just trade with we'll just treat Constantinople as its own thing. We can trade with it. We can work around it. We literally live on the other side of it. It's not a problem. Well, Murad's like, yeah, but it's the symbol. Yeah, and also, it's a really awesome fortress. It has a ton of money. And the symbology...
Now, where are they? Where are they? And they're doing this conversation.
So they're having this conversation at Edirne, which is west of Istanbul, and then east is the Bosphorus, and across that is where modern Turkey is.
Yeah, okay.
And modern Turkey doesn't go much past this. It's like,
they
got stopped, but not yet. So Murad's conquering, and finally he's just like, you know what, I'm done doing this, and he abdicates the throne. He wants. It's like he's planning the perfect setup for his kid.
Nice.
I don't want to be king anymore. I've had enough. I've done my fighting, and now it is time for the younger generation to take over. So he
seems like a very responsible.
It was a super responsible
person
choice. So in 1444, he abdicates the throne, and he lets Mehmed come onto the throne. Mehmed is 12 at this time.
Oh,
he was born in 1432.
It's a bit young.
A little bit. Now he's been getting an education on everything since he was about 4.
Okay.
So he's not like
still a bit young.
It's not like an American modern 12-year-old. We're talking. You will be educated.
Like, I suppose if your life expectancy is shorter.
Yep, you got to start young. And he would reach maturity, you know, like 13, 14. They're expecting you to go start having kids if you can.
Yikes.
But typically you're not a battle leader until then. You haven't really grown into your body yet.
Yeah.
So 16 to 18, then you're like, let's go kill some stuff. We're ready. So he has him take over. Mm-hmm. While this is happening, the Hungarians of Budapest fame.
Remember them?
They go, it's transition of power, and now there's a baby on the throne, and the unholy terror that was his father is gone. He's retired.
Oh.
Invasion.
Yeah, why not? That would be the time to do it.
Murad wasn't expecting this. He had a truce.
Oh.
With them and their religious leaders.
Yeah, he did.
Murad had a truce, and he said, you won't mess with my empire, and everything's fine. And they said, sure. And then the religious leaders said, he's a Muslim, it doesn't count.
Oh, dang.
He's an infidel. Treaties with the infidel don't count. So they...
I mean, they did when we wrote them down. We all agreed to it.
Yep. While they had the spears pointed at us.
Yeah. But now looking at it.
In
retrospect.
Is it a lie? No, it's to an infidel. It doesn't count as a lie.
Now that it's not inconvenient for us.
Right. Now that they've got their backs turned and they've walked away with their armies. So Mehmed is 12.
Yeah.
He's not a battle leader yet.
No, he's a kid.
He's a baby. So there's a story that he wrote his father a letter saying,
Father,
Daddy, come home.
Please.
And
you said this would be fun.
Yeah, they said that I'd be fine, and they were going to invade for like a year, and I've had 2 weeks. This is crap. Father. And he, the story goes that he said, either you're the Sultan, so you come and you rule your armies and lead your armies, or I am the Sultan, and I'm commanding you to come and run the armies for me.
Good one, kid.
Pick your battle.
Smart dad.
So
come back.
His father does return and helps put down this battle with the Hungarians.
Well, I think he did the good thing.
However, there's a problem.
Uh-oh.
There's a group of soldiers called the Janissaries. A Janissary is a trained from childhood killer. They are exceptionally good at it.
Is that like Janus,
like the root?
Greek god with 2 faces?
No, different spelling. Not related. Although it could be because Janissaries are Christians.
Oh, okay.
They're a Christian unit that is created from basically client states that are afraid of the Ottomans, and the Ottomans say, give us your children or we'll kill you. And then they give up their children, and then they train them as warriors to beat up the client state if they have to. They are fanatically, like, to the death loyal to the emperor.
Wow.
Without a question.
Okay.
They're also considered one of the first modern professional armies in the world.
The Janissaries.
Yeah. There are thousands and thousands of these guys. It's not like there's 5 of them. They have like the military training and skill of like a medieval knight, but they know how to work in a unit. They use gunpowder. They used big heavy axes, scimitars, spears, masters of whatever kind of warfare. They usually fought as infantry because it's hard to shoot a big gun. You're on a horse.
Yes.
Spooks them. They don't like it.
No.
But they could fight on horseback as well. And they wore armor. These are good fighters.
Okay.
And they were at that time when they weren't at a time of war. They were the palace guards for the emperor. And it was a traditional thing that when the emperor abdicated or died, they were all given a gift by the incoming emperor.
Oh, that's nice.
The story goes that wasn't done.
Oh, that's not. Oh, you gotta.
And they got mad.
You gotta do the things. You gotta.
So the story is that because it's we don't know exactly how it went down, and there's a theory that the former Grand Vizier, because he's not the Grand Vizier anymore.
Okay. Oh, you replaced the vizier as well?
Typically, yes.
Okay.
You pick your favorite. So he had
Yeah.
2 favorites that he liked that were his buddies. I should have written their names out, but
Yeah,
honestly, I couldn't pronounce them, and I didn't want to disrespect them by just going, I'm sorry.
That's right.
It's just better to say. He had these 2 viziers who, they were his teachers that went with him when he was a kid. So they kind of raised Mehmed
Okay.
to be, they had,
But either way, they're not the previous vizier.
they're not the previous vizier. And they're at odds. They have different opinions on things.
Yeah.
These guys are super anti-Constantinople. They've been putting this idea into Mehmed's head for years. Conquer the city.
Oh.
Take it. Take it.
Do it. You can do it.
Do it. Do it. Your dad couldn't do it, but you could do it.
Oh, dang. You don't want to do that. Pull that card.
Be like, that's
Dad
the
couldn't
way
do it.
you can be better than your father. Even. And it's a kind of, like, there's a prophecy. There's always prophecies into every religion, but there is one from a hermit who is basically like whoever conquers Constantinople is king of the world, essentially, and will unite all of Islam and possibly unite Christianity under, and like everything.
Now, who's in charge of Constantinople now? Just
The Byzantines. They have an emperor,
business. Oh, yeah.
Constantine the 11th at this time. He doesn't have any kids, so line of succession's real wonky for him too.
Oh, good time to attack.
And he's old.
Good time to get him.
So
Get him.
And the empire, like I said, is kind of crumbling. It's falling apart. It's been around a long time, and it's just kind of, they've taken all the power and they just put it in one spot. When you don't have telephones, safe roads, carrier pigeons, so the empire just kind of turns into warlords running different parts of the country.
That's no way to run an
Mini
empire.
kings, mini emperors.
It's not you run an empire at all.
Mm-mm.
Just so you know.
So yeah, and we're only to
You're doing fine.
here on my notes.
You're doing fine. No.
We're there.
Talk faster.
Talk faster. Well, there's a lot of information
Keep going.
because Mehmed does some stuff. So Mehmed is like, wait, the Janissaries are mad at me, and it's a 12-year-old kid, right? But he's been told, you're the king.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm the king. They have to listen to me, and they're like, technically yes, but there's thousands of them,
Oh no.
and they're our army, and the whole bunch of them are mad.
Because of the gift thing?
Because apparently the gift wasn't done, and it's like a kind of like a sacred
Yeah.
renewal of vows and oaths.
Okay.
Because the emperor took it very personally. Like
Who
the
messed that up? We don't know.
Don't know. So either the kid just didn't know, which should have been lesson number 1. Pay the army.
Yep.
Day 1. It's like paying your rent on the 1st.
Yep.
Or your mortgage.
The kid didn't know, or someone did on purpose.
Or somebody did on
to
purpose.
stir up.
So there's kind of 2 theories. The kid, it just was an oversight as he's overwhelmed and trying to run a country, and then he got attacked, and there was a war, and there's all this stuff going on. Or the former Grand Vizier Halil was like, this kid doesn't respect you guys. And things were better under his dad. Look, he can't even fight the Hungarians, and we just crushed them.
This guy.
So,
Okay, Grand Vizier.
Yeah.
Halil. I don't know if I like this guy.
yeah. And it wasn't for sure that the former Grand Vizier was like former, but he was like on the way out. You know, he's like, I'm going to be part of the carrying over the tradition of the former thing.
But he
So
sure had reason
He
to...
saw writing on the wall, like, I'm not going to be here for long. This kid
Yeah.
and I don't agree on anything. I don't like his advisors. So whether it was Halil orchestrated this, or
Right.
the Janissaries and their commanders were just mad, they basically petitioned Murad to come back.
Oh.
Come back out of retirement.
So
They don't threaten to kill the kid. It's kind of nice. Like, they don't go, or we'll murder everybody. It's just kind of implied, though.
Oh.
When you're the army and you hold that
So
capital.
the dad already came back
To
at
fight- yeah,
at
to
the
lead
kid's
the armies.
request.
And now he's like, okay, I'll stay. I'll take over again.
I want him to retire.
So for the next,
they keep pulling me back
it's just
in.
when they thought I was out. So, and it also could have been that Murad was like, I gave you the throne and you suck. So there's 3. There's 3 possibilities.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I gave it up too early.
Maybe a 12-year-old should.
Maybe a 12-year-old shouldn't have done it. My bad. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of animosity.
Okay.
There's nothing actually written about it, and the Ottomans took like meticulous notes, and some of them were very controversial. They're like, you can't kill me. I'm a religious leader. Do you know how bad that'll look? And they're like, oh man, we don't want to be like some of the Christian kings or some of the other Turkish kings or some of the other like. And plus, you're literally writing this down as I'm doing it, and there's 6 other guys taking notes.
It's always a little dicey to piss off someone's religion.
You don't do that. And they have a big belief on like education. So everybody's writing stuff, and they have like a big poetic tradition. So people are like writing poems and songs about this stuff. The courts are filled with like these educated thinkers, but also like a warrior caste. It's really interesting. It's like they kind of nailed it, how to blend that, because they obviously did a really good job. They're around for like 630
Yeah.
years. I'd say it's pretty good.
Learn to write.
Yeah, learn to write. It's kind of important. Learn to read, too. Just writing doesn't help if you don't know what you're doing. So Murad runs the country, and he continues on his, usual, I'm just going to thump things in the face, and I'm really good at it.
Hey, man, ain't broke,
And
don't fix it.
Yep. And this time, when Murad finally dies, he gets ill. There's nothing untoward about it. It's not like he was stabbed in the back. He doesn't die in battle. He just gets sick. He's only about 50 years old.
Happens.
That's the life of. I mean, can you imagine the stress of running an empire that's growing, and you're always fighting and moving around? Some of these guys live to be 70 doing that, and some of them they're dead at 5, and then you got this guy who's lived he's been ruling
50
for
seems reasonable.
pretty.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was ruling an empire for in total about 30 years. I don't think my brain could take that. Just the sheer amount of work you have to do. So there's some burnout, and he dies. The transition to Mehmed coming back into power is seamless. There's no drama.
Well, we've done this already.
Yeah, we've done this before.
We had a dry run.
It's tech rehearsal.
Great.
This is tech week.
But now Murad's dead.
Murad's
he
dead.
can't
We
come
can't
back.
go back.
Can't come back now.
So immediately.
How old's the kid now?
Now he's 17.
Okay.
17, 18. So he's much more mature. He's taking part in campaigns now. He's riding horses. He's hitting things with a sword. He's making babies. He's doing all the things that a young leader's supposed to be doing.
Sure.
And he's gotten some respect now from the soldiers. Oh, you can do stuff. Okay.
You're not a 12-year-old child.
The theory is the Christians in other neighboring kingdoms and the Byzantines go, this kid sucked so bad he had to call in his daddy to bail him out. And then he sucked so badly his daddy was asked to stay. This will be a pushover.
Yeah. But when daddy's dead...
The second his father dies, he begins plans to conquer Constantinople. And it is... We're going to devote an episode to just this.
Interesting.
Because the amount of work that he puts into this and the sheer grit, determination, and focus he has at 19 years old, Mehmed II forges an army 80,000 strong.
Wow.
He makes a navy from scratch. He has his guys build ships on the east side of the Bosphorus, sail them across the sea, drag them up over the mountains back into the sea so he can properly blockade the port on both sides of the harbor.
Wow.
He goes all out.
I guess when you're 19, you dream big.
You do dream big. So this is 1451. He's become the Sultan. He's in charge. And in 1453, in May, he conquers the city of Constantinople.
Boom.
This has never happened.
It was quick.
There have been sieges. There have been a lot of sieges. There have been, I didn't even bother looking at a list. It was very long, and it's how many times does it count as a siege if an army of 10,000 hits it, or an army of 500?
Did they get past the first wall?
How many walls did they break? Did the city surrender? Did they just go, okay, that's enough, we'll pay you off and you can leave? Technically, the city was almost burned to the ground once before.
Okay.
Not by the Muslims.
Oh.
During the Fourth Crusade, the Crusaders were sent to Constantinople, and they were supposed to go further east. They got mad. They got angry. And they also owed the Venetians, who controlled all trade, debts. They sacked Constantinople, looted it.
Oh, just for money?
Just for money. And then they all went home. Every single person on the crusade was excommunicated by the Pope. Because he's the high patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church too. They were like, you guys all suck. You're worse than the Turks. They've been fighting us for centuries, haven't cracked the walls. You jerks show up, you're supposed to help us, and you burn the city, and you kill a bunch of people, and you steal all our stuff.
Just shake them down.
So it's thought that was kind of like the starting point of the fall of Constantinople, because it was the city was impregnable. Oh. And then it got poisoned from within. So it's kind of it got impregnated.
I don't think that's right.
I think that's not right. Not. I mean, there's jokes about that.
Sure.
Yeah. It's impregnable. Well, I can impregnate it. Ha ha ha.
And they had a little baby
castle. Little baby city.
Yeah,
that's how suburbs come out.
Well,
That's how you get suburbs. You have
I didn't know I was going to learn.
You have an impregnable city, and then you impregnate it, and that's where the suburbs come from.
The birds and the bees and the
cities
and the
infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gross. Never going in the sewers again. Don't know what happens down there. It's gross. Cities doing city stuff.
The sewers.
Anyway. So he's conquered this city, but it's thought that when the Crusaders hit it, it like sapped like the soul of the city.
Yeah,
right?
Well,
like, we've been doing this for so long. We were doing so well, and now we can't count on our Western allies.
Yeah.
Who treated us worse than the Turks did.
That's
because at least we could reason with them. You guys went on like a 3-day bender and just wrecked stuff.
Our city that was unwreckable.
And you wrecked it. We let you in, and then you wrecked it.
Yeah.
You guys suck.
Yeah.
But this was more than a century before. Mm-hmm. So there's time to rebuild, but
it just was never the same.
You killed some of the elite fighting forces, you undermined their credibility, but still, this city is the most unassailable place on the planet. So this is not to reduce Mehmed's credit at all of what he does, because when we talk about the siege, like, it's insane. The amount of work that he planned.
What did you say? 800,000?
80,000.
80,000.
That's a conservative estimate. I think that's what both sides have agreed. That's roughly what that must have been.
Okay.
The people of Constantinople were like, "There's 1 million of them.
Right.
We're all gonna die."
But
the Turks kept really meticulous records because they had to pay everyone.
Yeah.
And the most elite part of the force was the Janissaries. They led almost every assault, and it gets crazier and crazier and crazier as things go. They use new techniques in gunpowder. They use techniques where they have ladders and towers built onto ships. They mine underneath the walls. They build bridges that have never been built before. It's like this. There's an engineering class that could be run off of what happened. And then for everything they do, the Byzantines have a commander who's just like a mercenary, and he's literally like taking guys in full plate armor out in front of the city and fighting them off like day after day after day. And eventually the city, though, it has too much. And it's, instead of it just like we're gonna starve them out, it's too big. So they just hammer on them all day, every day for like a month, just nonstop. And Mehmed is just determined. He's like, there's nothing that's going to stop me from doing
this. I suppose at some point you start.
Yeah, we've been trying this for years. We're going to do it now.
Yeah.
It's doable. It's doable. We've almost done it so many times. We're not going to stop. God wants us to do it. I want us to do it. You want us to do it. We're going to do it. Yeah. And if we get inside, you guys can loot the city for 3 days. Have fun.
What a nice guy.
Here's the thing.
Mehmed.
When you loot a city during a siege, that means you can kill and rape and do whatever you want with no consequences.
It's like the Purge.
Mehmed, however, has studied a lot of humanism. Oh. That's part of his education.
Okay.
He's studied his own faith, which even though is pretty, it's kind of wonky. You can kind of go either way. It's like kill the infidel, but also we're all of the same people and we all worship the same God. And that's like page 1 is.
Right.
We're just a continuation of the other Abrahamic faiths. They're different than us. It's fine.
Sure.
So he sees what's going on in the city, and after 1 day, he's like, never mind. We're done. We're not killing anybody else. I don't like this. Okay.
I thought I would enjoy this.
He's like, I thought we could do, but this isn't what we came here to do. So he immediately stops his soldiers. Surprisingly, they listen. Because normally, like, imagine trying to get 80,000 very angry killers who've been spending a month killing with disease and famine, and they watch their buddies get blown up and get crushed in different breaches in the walls and get stabbed to death in the face. You're a little angry. You want to take out that
then you're
anger.
like, all right, please, go ahead.
Yep. And then he's like, go do it.
Away, do it.
And it's like he took the dog off the leash and he just grabbed its hind legs.
Ooh,
like at the last thing. Like, I meant no. And the dog calms down.
Okay.
Somehow. He gets them to stop. He gets them to stop. And the Janissaries just start establishing order. Now, normally what this means, in everything else we've studied, you put everybody you don't like to the sword, right?
I guess. Maybe that's one way to keep things under control.
Right. The emperor has died of Constantinople.
Yep.
He has no kids.
Yep.
His brothers are not in the city, but their kids are. Oh. They're the heirs.
Okay.
Mehmed has a choice. I can kill them, solidify my reign, or not. He adopts them
Oh.
into his household.
Yoink. Oh, what a switcheroo.
He doesn't make them his kids, but he formally adopts them. One of them eventually becomes his grand vizier, and the other one becomes the head of his fleets, like his grand admiral.
Okay.
Like he welcomes them into his home. He's like, so you'll have safety, security. I think he renames them, but I feel like there's a level of freedom that he must give them because they're loyal until death.
Sure.
And he gives them opportunity. It's not like, do what I say or I'm going to stab you in the face.
Right.
It's the world sucks. It's a bleak medieval setting. It's not wonderful. Your family left you here to die. Your city's gone. It's mine now. Let's be pragmatic. You guys can have a seat at the table.
I mean, unless you want me to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you try to stab me in the back,
if you want.
really twist my arm.
We have two options. Yep. Here's the one I'm choosing.
But here's an option for you. I'm going to give you the olive branch.
What do you think?
So the kids are like, yeah, duh.
Right,
this is cool. Plus, it gives him some legitimacy. He didn't just butcher everybody.
Yeah.
He's super pragmatic about all this.
He at least thought
very smart
about stuff.
Then he looks at the city. He's like, okay, so we got a really big city, and it's like half empty because of...
Or half full.
Or half full. And that's the thing, though, is he sees it as half empty, but it could be totally full.
Oh, sure.
Because he says, well, this is a great city.
It's a nice place.
He goes right up to the great church, the Hagia Sophia, which we talked about. You and I have personally talked about. It's a giant church in the center of Istanbul, and it was made in I think the 4th century. It's this ancient giant structure. It's huge dome, and he just converts it into a mosque. He doesn't burn it down. He doesn't break it. He's like, we could do some cool stuff with this.
Oh.
We're going to turn it into a mosque. We're also going to elect a new Greek Orthodox patriarch. We're not going to kill the Christians.
Oh.
We're going to elect a new... Now, he's smart about who he elects. He doesn't go, who hates Muslims the most? He says, who hates the West the most? And to be fair, Constantinople has a reason to hate the West because they've bailed on them time and time again.
Sure.
So he's just like, who's maybe not necessarily pro-Ottoman, but is, I don't like those guys, so if you go do stuff, I'm not going to condemn you. So he elects a new patriarch. Then he elects a Jewish patriarch.
What?
And gives sanctuary to the Jews within the city.
What?
He doesn't touch them.
Wow, that is the nicest thing that has happened to the Jews.
This is our 17th episode. We have never had anything nice happen to the Jews ever.
And we would like things. I mean, to be clear,
we want nice things to happen to. It's just so awful because every time we talk about Europe, something bad happens, and we have to devote an episode to why. There has to be. We're going to dig in, although there are podcasts, I think, that are built around this. Thousands of hours of... There are classes in college taught about this, so I'm not going to crack that nut. But people make horrible decisions and do horrible stuff to people they see differently.
It seems like a big trend, though, against anti...
It's awful. They're always a scapegoat. Yeah. Mehmed does not have this bias.
What a guy.
Mehmed says, well, the Hebrews are the proto-Muslims. They're the first Abrahamic faith.
You know why he probably thought this? Because he could freaking read.
He could read a book.
That would help.
And he also was like, they're not darker than me. Because a lot of the times it is, oh, they're darker than us. We hate them. That's a big problem in Europe. But also the Ottoman culture it's so spread out.
Yeah.
And it has to take in so many different people for different stuff. They're in the middle of a trade center. So part of it is he's used to seeing people that are different than him.
Yeah.
That think differently, that act differently. His education covered all of it. And he's, again, educated. He's not like, you will hit this stick with a sword all day long until you break the stick. I don't care if you're 2. Swing harder. Try better. And that's largely Europe's politics at this time. It's better in the 1400s because we were starting the Renaissance. We're learning.
Sure.
But there's still just violence is the answer. For the Ottomans, they're like...
It is hard to argue against violence.
Well, the Ottomans are like, violence works really well for us, but ruling well is key afterwards. Because then we have to live here.
It's so much more work.
Because they're like, you know how nice it is to just sit back and drink a glass of water? Because we can't drink wine because we're Muslim. We can't drink beer. That might be it, too. They can't drink. Maybe there's something there. They can't be drunk.
Can't be drunk, and so they don't get...
They don't get drunken rages. Yeah. No alcoholic sultans. No wine-addled minds to go murder and pillage. It's just like, we're not drunk, so we're sober enough to stop. Sure. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe there's something to that. The evolution of booze has to do with violence. But more likely it's just because they're kind of in this crossroads area. They have to deal with so many people. And their people were nomadic. So they come from different places.
When
They're
you have to get along with other people,
you learn how to get along.
you get along with other
That's
people.
why, like in bigger cities, a lot of time people they're like, whatever. Is this?
Yeah.
We're all close together. There's
Yeah.
so many of us. So that's why there's probably why it works out. He also notes that a huge part of the trade quarter consists of Jewish people. He doesn't want to kill the merchant class.
No.
A huge part of the trade quarter, they're Christians. He doesn't want to kill the trading class. He's like,
Yeah.
you guys make money. This is a trade city. It's also an educated city. He builds the 8 greatest schools within the Muslim world for centuries. These are the top madrasas, is what they're called.
Ooh.
They're like a center of learning for both philosophy, astrology, astronomy, religion, sciences, math, art. Bear in mind, the Arabs created the number 0. So, like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So arithmetic is an Arabic invention. Jerks giving us algebra, helping us
Look,
figure out what X is.
Just because you're not good at it doesn't mean
No,
it
it's
doesn't
just,
have
algebra I can do because it's like,
yeah.
okay, I have 2 of this and blank of that, and now I have 10. What's blank? 8. Aha! Wouldn't have been able to figure it out so easy
Is that algebra?
without the Muslims. That's algebra.
Okay.
A plus B equals C.
Yeah, I mean.
Solve for B. Here's
Okay.
this. Anyway,
Go
so
on.
Mehmed is like, I'm going to make a center of culture here.
Yeah.
It's been a center of war.
It's a nice city.
It's got a great location.
There's location.
We didn't break all the walls.
Yeah. Nah.
So we'll fix. They worked for 1,000 years. They
Let's
worked
patch these
really
up.
well. Fix them. Take all the stones we took away, put them back.
Very good.
Build some new stuff.
Do we
clean
mark
up the
those
streets.
while we were taking them down?
Yep.
All right, put those
Okay.
back.
Do you guys remember where this was? Don't mix up the puzzle pieces. It's like Legos. You like keep your colors sorted.
Mhm.
All the pieces that are the right.
Yeah.
Put it back together. All right. And all the janitors like, you didn't tell us. We'd have to put it back. We used gunpowder.
Well, we'll
Salted.
fix it. Did they fix it though?
They did. They
Okay.
repair. So they repair the walls. They repair the city. And to this day, Constantinople, which is eventually renamed Istanbul, is the capital of the Ottoman Empire.
Oh.
He makes it the official capital of the Ottoman Empire. And then to this day, it's the capital of Turkey, which is what the Ottoman Empire became. So he does his thing.
He did the thing.
Within 50 years, it's the most populated city in all of Europe.
Did the thing again.
Another thing he does is he goes, there's not enough people here.
Yeah.
He takes kind of an interesting approach.
Well, I can think of 2 ways.
So he goes out into like kind of the wilderness and he goes, you're all kicked out of the land. Go live in a city. It's nicer there anyway.
Oh.
That's all he does. He takes Christians and Muslims.
He makes them. He
just
forces
makes them
to
move.
move.
He says, you got to go live in my nice new city.
Oh. Okay.
And they do. And their lives are instantly better.
What is the agriculture and such in the area? Are there?
Not great. Depends on the land. This is tough, rough land.
So the
Very
people
rocky.
who are not living in the city, or the people who are living in the city, where are they getting, like, is it all just, like,
Largely trade
import
goods.
and stuff like that?
Nearby there are some fields
Okay.
that are arable land. But he goes out into like Anatolia, where it's horse country.
Okay.
That's not great for living on. It's not like our Dust Bowl, but it's not ideal.
I'm just saying, how difficult was it to convince these people, like, come into their city? Well, is there anything in that city? Nah, just buildings and no food. I mean...
Well, he gave them, it's kind of that opportunity. It's like why people went to New York.
Okay.
You know, it's going to be this great metropolitan area. There's opportunities, there's all this. And also, if you don't, my janissaries are going to kill you.
Oh.
There's
There
definitely,
was the backup threat?
definitely there is a carrot and stick approach to
Okay.
this. He's the Sultan. He can take your head if he wants to, anytime,
Sure.
no recourse. Except, Mehmed also decides law is important.
Yeah, I guess.
So he, for the first time ever in Ottoman history, creates a constitution.
Oh.
He creates constitutional law and criminal law, and he codifies them. Because they weren't. They were just kind of like, well, this governor says that guy says that, this guy says that guy says that. And
Does he do this by himself?
He does a lot of it by himself and with the support of his viziers.
Okay.
-1. So he gets sick of... We talked about how he didn't like Halil.
Yeah.
Halil, at the walls of Constantinople, at several meetings, it's written down that he was like, you're an idiot and this is a stupid idea. You are wasting money, you are wasting
Write that
time,
down.
you are wasting energy. So Constantinople falls in May On 10 July, Halil is taken aside and publicly executed.
Oh, no.
For constantly sassing, basically.
Oh, too much sass.
Mehmed.
You gotta be
Say,
careful.
I don't care who you are. I'm the Sultan. Look at me. Look at me. I am the Sultan now. Like, it's very... I like to think almost every situation we can get that Captain Phillips
Sure,
scene.
sure.
Look at me. Such a chilling...
Someday we'll actually do that moment. And then,
Yep,
then
we might we'll talk about that.
that.
Yeah, eventually we'll have to talk about modern stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's, look at me. I'm the Sultan now. And has him executed. He's just sick of his crap. He's sick of it. And he starts, though, building, like, laws and rules because it's complicated the way it is. It's too spread out. Everybody's doing their own thing. And he wants total control.
Oh.
But he's so...
But I want to be nice about it.
He becomes this prototype for the autocratic leader. He controls the military, he controls the state, he controls everything, and it all funnels directly to him. However, he has this crazy amount of benevolence that's not seen in any of his contemporaries.
Oh.
He spares Christians, he employs them, he passes laws about, like, trade and equality amongst people. Not like, you know, women are equal to men. God forbid he say anything like that. But
He'll be so progressive, I guess.
Right. But he's extremely progressive for the time.
Sure.
He didn't murder the Jews. So, like, that's a huge step up from literally every time, like, the West has conquered any city. That's one of the first groups of people they put to the sword are the Jews. The Muslims never do. Well, they do sometimes, but because each conqueror is different.
But not this.
Not in this situation, he doesn't. And then, like, a different, really famous Muslim leader like Saladin, when he took Jerusalem from the Crusaders, he spared all the Jews and all the Christians that still wanted to live in the city. Or if they wanted to leave, they could move, and he let them leave. So there's some benevolence in, like, the way these guys are taught. There must be some kind of common thread of education where it's like, they're taught the good version of things, not the violent version of things. Okay. You see it a lot too in, like, European leaders where it's like you get the ones that are taught just use the sword, and then you get the ones that are, like, educated and have learned things.
There are other things than swords.
You don't have to just murder it. That's why, like, Henry II we talked about, the guy who had Becket killed, maybe. He doesn't use the sword all the time. He's the most respected statesman in all of Europe. Mehmed doesn't use the sword, but the thing is, he can. Right. And if he drops the hammer, it's a country-sized hammer.
Yikes.
The amount of resources at his disposal begin to grow. So he's taken Constantinople at 19. Yep. Oh, sorry, no. That's when he took the full throne. So it's he was born 21. Yeah, 21. He's 21 years old when the siege finally ends. So he's got all these laws working. He's having Constantinople building. He doesn't stop there. He goes on to become known as Mehmed the Conqueror. Ooh. And it's not because he conquered one city. He conquers Serbia, Morea, Trebizond, Wallachia, Bosnia, Anatolia, Albania. He fights with Venice and almost wins. He fights Moldavia and almost wins. He plans an invasion of Italy. This dude goes on, I don't want to say crusade because it's not just like a religious thing. It's purely like he hits Muslim territories as well. So in order of when they happen,
what would you call it? Not a crusade, a tear.
Just a war. Yeah, just a tear. Just a war.
Right.
Everything. It's like if he started a video game and just declared war on all the surrounding countries. He just does.
And it's in the middle, so it's easy.
And it is. Like, that's the crazy thing. He doesn't have any natural borders to really protect him. He's like, all right, well, since we got this army, let's just go. So in 1454, he starts a war with Serbia. Lasts 5 years. He hammers them and beats them all the way back to Belgrade. But he couldn't conquer the city because there was this guy named Durad who was 79 years old at the time. He's like 72. Yeah. This is the toughest SOP. Like, I want to do a thing about him because
a 72-year-old from Serbia.
He's like 72-year-old Serbian guy. He's like this prince. He's running this city.
I bet he smokes non-filtered cigarettes.
Non-filtered cigarettes, and it's just everything stained.
You invade Serbia?
You invade Serbia?
No, you don't.
You don't invade Serbia. You are the Ottomans? Don't care. Fight you. And he does. Furiously. He is like this tactical genius and he's, for all I know, he's propped up on a stick.
Sure. Who's this guy?
Durad Brankovic.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And the the Ottomans couldn't beat him. Like, they could beat everything else, but they could never stop this guy. So they're fighting and fighting and fighting, and until he's 79 years old, he finally dies.
But not because of you.
Yeah.
I died
so
because
actually,
I want
I'm
him
getting
to die.
my numbers are slightly wrong. There's another old guy who does this.
Okay.
These old Eastern European guys are scary. So he's like 74 at the time.
Have you seen the land around here? That has not killed me.
That hasn't killed me.
You're not gonna kill me.
You're not gonna kill me. You can't stop me. So yeah, it's like they fight and they crush their army.
Yeah.
But they can't crack the strongholds. I mean, and these are the guys who broke Constantinople.
Yeah.
But this is harder terrain to get through. They don't have boats. Then it's just like.
And it's got to be harder people. I mean, we're making fun of this guy, but
but these are tough
people.
Tough people. They live in it's just mountains and woods.
Yeah.
It's just mountains and woods. That's all it is. Everything there wants to kill them. Everything, even the field mice. They're not big enough to do it, but they want you to die. This is our land. There's just real tough little field mice, and even the little field mice have unfiltered cigarettes.
We don't even know what tobacco is. Get out of Serbia. The mice were here before the humans were.
Serbia.
You are stealing trees.
The mouse has a lot of attitude.
It's a very sassy mouse. They're all just Serbian mice are aggressive.
Bring in the turkey cats.
The Turkish cats probably cats. They turned them into mounts. Ooh. Just rode them around.
Now we are mobile. Spit at a question.
So this guy is just a lion. I don't know how he does it, but he just fights them off. And then he finally dies because he's 79 years old. He's ancient by these standards. Yeah. So he dies, and the kingdom doesn't have anybody left who's terrifying enough to keep the Serbs just kind of lose their spirit after.
Oh, well, yeah. We had that one guy who was good.
Mehmed, rather than invade again, just says, I annex you. You now are part of the empire. Okay. And they go, fine. It's been like 5 years, and our crazy old guys go, we don't have crazy Uncle Durat anymore. We're done. Then he goes to Morea, which is Greek territory. After the Byzantine Empire collapses, it creates a bunch of what are called rump states, which is like the big empire died.
Rump states?
They're called rump states. I don't pick the name.
That's fine.
A rump state is just a piece of like a fallen empire. So like when Rome fell, it broke up into different kingdoms.
Sure.
That's what happens here. And they kind of fail really quickly. Because it's Byzantine politics without the cash from Constantinople, and they made the Ottomans angry. In some particular situations, they anger Mehmed. Oh. So he goes to Morea, and it's mostly like kind of an independent territory relatively. The towns, he just hits them one at a time, and they're surrendering or they get crushed, but then they surrender. They see him coming, like, nope. That's the army that killed Constantinople. I'm good, man. I'm good. And he actually starts this invasion while he's still fighting in Serbia. So this is 1458 to 60. Okay. He does this. They mostly surrender. A few run away to Venice. Venice is going to come back later.
Sure. Trebizond,
another rump state. This is the one where the guy named David Komnenos. The Komnenos were the family that ran the Byzantine Empire for the last, I think, century or two.
This guy's name is David?
Dave. Yep. King Dave. He refers to himself as an emperor. Trebizond's basically a city-state. It's not big, it's a province. It's not that big enough to be an empire, but he says he's the emperor. He starts scheming with Venice and a bunch of other places. Like, this is how we'll get Mehmed. We're going to invade Jerusalem. We're going to do all this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Mehmed gets sick of his crap, leads the army personally, captures him, and executes him and his kids.
Oh. I mean, that sends a message, I guess.
It sends a message. You're all dead. I'm done with you.
I mean, it sends that message, yes, you're all dead. And it sends other messages as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing again. He has this sense of ruthlessness to his enemies. And his people even are like, that's hardcore, and you maybe didn't need to do that. But also, like, you're building universities and spreading education.
And he gets the job done.
Religious freedom and all this. What is going... Who are you? Like, they're struggling with this guy. He rolls through. He goes to Bosnia. He fights there in 1463 against Stephen, I believe it's Tomasevich, who asks Venice for help.
Okay.
He executes that guy. He starts catching on. The Venetians are backing all these countries.
Oh.
He does not like it.
Is Venice a rich place?
They are possibly at the time the richest city in all of Europe.
Right.
They are super wealthy.
And
They
so they're-
control all the trade.
So they're using their money to.
They're using their money, and they're bankers, expert bankers. They've been banking and collecting coin for forever.
no.
Even the Crusaders.
Is it a merchant of Venice?
Of course, the one Jew that Shakespeare writes about, and they make him horrible.
Yeah.
There are lots of merchants in Venice.
Sure.
Anyway, so he hits Bosnia, and that's like a kind of a punitive, like, you rebelled. They were already like a protectorate of the Ottomans. And then they also are like, what if we work with the Venetians?
That's it.
Dead. Anatolia, which is already part of the Ottoman Empire, he has to put out some fires. They're called the Beys, B-E-Y. They're like princes. Clan, and it ranges from small clan leader to owns a town to could lead an army. I think the full term is like a Beyalik, but they just start calling them Beys, and they start becoming names. You'd be like Mehmet Bey, Murad Bey, or stuff like that. It's it becomes a title within their culture. I know. I'm blasting through these. There's so much.
Ding ding.
I know. Sorry.
That's fine.
So he either crushes, absorbs, or allies with all of the groups that are causing problems. There's one that he doesn't like because they're really fond of like Christian kingdoms that have stabbed him, like Hungary.
No.
He's like, I don't trust these guys. Like every time Hungary has a second, they made me have to lose my throne. I don't like these people. I don't like you guys liking those people. He goes to Albania. The Turks have a really bad history with Albania, so that's a thing. From 1466 to 78, he leads 2 massive invasions personally in 66 and 67. And this other old guy, his name is Skanderberg. That's literally just what they call him, Skanderberg. And his image is he's just like this most stoic looking old gray beard with a poofy hat. Just doesn't care.
Skanderberg?
Yep. He leads He starts his own rebellion, and he's like, "This is crap. I don't like this guy. He's a bully. He's a thug, and we're not gonna do what he wants." And
boy, his trouble putting down old guys makes me think he has daddy issues.
He could have killed them. He just didn't.
Yeah.
So he leads these 2 massive invasions, and he can't crack this guy. The guy he either retreats into the wilderness or falls back to his fortresses. They annihilate the Albanian army. It's called like the Field of White or something like that, allegedly because of the bones left behind. They kill everybody. And it's not just one-sided. It's a really just brutal fight. In the end, things get really, really, really tight, and Mehmet's like, well, it's all or nothing right now. He gets his personal guard and just charges into the middle and just, all right, screw it, let's go, kill everything. And they win. Fortunately for them, unfortunately for Albania. Skanderberg dies in 68, and in 1468, and I think he's like 65 at the time. And Albania lingers on for like another 10 years, just kind of poking the bear.
Okay.
But not really big active fighting anymore.
Right. Well,
Again, they're like, we don't really have anybody who's good enough to lead after we lost our leader. He's not, but you guys can't crack our fortresses.
let's just
be done.
Yeah.
My favorite, and then he's got wars with Venice and Moldavia that just kind of go on and on because Venice has been making him angry. He has this crazy idea. Now, Mehmed at this time has declared himself Caesar.
Ooh.
I own the seat of Roman power.
Nice.
So I'm the new Caesar.
Hey.
That makes me the Roman emperor.
Hey.
And that's why he's going to make a new Rome. However, he starts to plan to invade Italy, and his advisor's like, are you going to conquer Rome? Like, are you trying to rebuild the actual Roman Empire? Is that your plan?
Why not, man?
Yeah.
You've been doing pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. But then also it's rumored that he was planning on invading the Mamluks to the south, who are another sultanate. And that way he could control what's called the caliphate, which is the height of Muslim power.
Okay.
So it's a religious thing. So he can control all of Islam. And there's like a prophecy that he who controls the caliphate will like rule the world.
I suppose once you start controlling things,
Exactly.
you want more.
So he's got all these plans, and then he's got to figure out his heir. So he has the heir Bayezid. He sets him aside. It's his eldest son. He's like, you're not going to be king. Too friendly with the Christians, and I don't like your plans.
Oh.
It is theorized that Bayezid, linking up with the anti-war factions and the guys who don't like his new because he starts taking money from like the church, and then giving the warrior class control over stuff.
Oh.
He like gives janissaries land, villages,
That's,
and again,
I guess.
it's really Roman.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh yeah, he's taking all the land from all these people. And that's so new and weird. It's like, no, it's like he's Romanizing everything.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Roman soldiers are getting the farms, so the janissaries get places to retire. They have a future now. They're not just like slave soldiers. They have rights and titles and land. But the old school nobles are like, nah, we're losing land. We don't like it. And the religious leaders are like, we don't like this. And he suddenly gets sick. And then 3 days after getting sick, he's dead.
Oh.
So he's plotted. He literally is leading an army. He's 49 years old, healthy as a horse. And he gets sick right before he can cross. Nobody's sure if he was going to go south across the Aegean to invade Egypt, or if he was going to go west to invade Italy, but he died.
Can't go either way.
Right there. My favorite invasion, though, I saved the best for last, just because it's a little aside.
Good, because we're out of time.
We're out of time. We've been out of time. In 1459, he invaded a small province that my brother told me he thinks the name is made up, and I told him all of the names are made up.
True.
It's called Wallachia, or Wallachia.
Yeah.
Wallachia is in modern Eastern Europe, and it holds a little province called Transylvania.
Oh.
When Mehmed invades, it is ruled by a man named Vlad Tepes called Dracula, who is renowned as being a terrifying war leader.
Oh, yeah.
He is ruthless to his enemies. He is kind to his allies.
He's a vampire.
He's a vampire. He was educated by the Sultan, and Murad really liked him. Mehmed hated him, and he hated Mehmed. And they have this, like, feud. And Mehmed constantly battles with Dracula. They have these wars. And again, the land... and right? We're talking... It's
great.
This is what... this is crazy, because it's like, Dracula. We all have heard the name.
I wish we had brought Dracula up earlier.
Oh, no.
We're out of time.
No, because I'm going to say... we're going to talk about him again.
Keep going.
We're going to talk about him again. So they have like these massive fights, but the land in Wallachia is mountains and trees. That's all it is. And he's like this expert in cavalry tactics and light cavalry, just hitting things and doing raids. His people are as mean as the Serbs. They're just stubborn, and they're like, we've been here since before time.
And possibly vampires.
They're possibly vampires. And he gets the title of Vlad the Impaler.
Oh, yeah.
Because anytime he starts defeating enemies, he spits them on sticks and hangs them up all over the place. And effective. It really discourages Mehmed's troops. Eventually, Mehmed can't beat him. He can't beat him in the field. He can't stop him. Vlad doesn't invade Ottoman lands. He's just purely defending.
Okay.
But ruthlessly.
Yeah.
And if his, what are called a voivode, which is like a local lord, if they do anything wrong, they get impaled. Ooh. Bear in mind, impaling is while you're alive. So there's a story where he has like a forest around him of impaled bodies. They're not all dead. He invites people to dine, and he sets he leads through absolute terror. But like the peasant class are like all protected.
Sure.
So it's just the nobles are scared of this guy. The only way that they manage to stop Vlad is his ally, another Stephen. There's like 17 Stephens that could have been mentioned. Stabs him in the back.
Oh.
And starts hitting him from the flank, and Vlad has to retreat, and he just withdraws to Hungary. And Mehmed's like, I'm so sick of this guy! So he just makes Vlad's brother the ruler of Wallachia. But Vlad comes back 3 times. This guy comes back from the dead. But like from political outcast, from exile, from death, that it would have been death for everybody else, and reclaims his throne.
Interesting.
It's a fascinating dude, and I just was like,
we have to talk about
Mehmed's tied in with Dracula. He's tied in with like these great sultans. He conquered Constantinople. He was on the $1,000, well, the 1,000 note.
Yeah.
From 1986 to 1992.
Huh.
He's respected as like the great leader that started the Ottoman Empire, that really forged Turkey. When he died, the bells rang throughout all of Venice, and they said the great eagle is dead, because they thought of him as this bird of prey just killing everything. So it was like a time of great celebration. It's very interesting to think he conquered that much by the time he was 49, and it looked like he was going to keep going.
And then he just got sick and died.
And then Bayezid, his son, who probably poisoned and murdered him, he became the next emperor. And then I think it's either his son or his nephew is Suleiman the Magnificent.
Well, we can't talk about them now.
No.
Because we're done with this story.
Way over time. But there was so much to talk about because this guy's fascinating and awesome and complicated.
And I'm sure we'll learn more in future episodes.
In future episodes, we got more of these.
But also, if you know little tidbits about Mehmed the Second, feel free to throw those in the thing. We're going to be, that's This Week in History. That was in 1451. Next week, we're discussing the death of Mary, Queen of Scots.
Yep.
In 1587.
This one was by special request from our good friend Erica. So if you guys have special requests about certain times in history, send them our way. We'll talk about it. We'll do the studying.
We love to please.
We love to please. We love to learn. We like to do this.
We like doing it.
This is educational for everybody.
So like and subscribe. Share this with other people. Thanks for having us. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Mike.